So your notes are here, right? Make sure you got them. You see the handheld? There's the. No, this is the one you throw at the audience if they ask a bad question.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they ask a rough question, you just sling it out.
I got just a couple of things.
Sure.
Quick. It's my announcement, and then I'll turn it over to you. Are you okay with the handheld?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. For the sake of our audience at home, we're going to go ahead and begin. But thank you guys for coming today. I'm sure we're probably going to have a lot of latecomers streaming in as we go on, but we'll get everything rolling here. We're very excited about having our guests, Roy and Alan, today. They're going to be talking about private companies for a change. This is something new, and it's something personally I've been seeing a lot more of late, getting people asking about these opportunities and using self-directed IRAs for them. So we're really happy to have them share some knowledge about it, as it is kind of a burgeoning area. Just to begin, just want to go over a couple of things relative to Quest and just remind you of some of the programs that we do offer and put on. Of course, we always have these educational sessions that we do. We have, in addition to our Tuesday classes and our periodic lunch and learns, we have our self-directed IRA Saturdays. Every Tuesday, again, we have various classes. We have events that are held live. This Tuesday, we will be having our live event here in the Dallas office. It'll be our social. It's 6:30 to 8:30, so we hope you can come and join us for that. And of course, don't forget, even if you can't make it to an event or you missed something that was online, everything is always recorded and archived on our YouTube channel. Just another view of things that are coming up. We do have our boot camp for the Masters of Tax Avoidance. This is going to focus this year on oil and gas as one of the primary topics. So that certainly should be very useful and helpful, and maybe a new area to learn about with the various strategies. Also right now, very exciting promotion to tell you about for anybody who is a new account holder. We are offering a promotion where if you open up a new self-directed IRA and you fund it with $5,000 or more by April 15th, you will get a $125 credit to your new account. Now, $125 is a very specific number because that correlates to the cost of a transaction. So in essence, for your new IRA, you get your first transaction for free. So please ask about us, ask about it. Be happy to share the details and we can get you set up. Finally, don't forget about our referral program. This is a way where if you bring new clients over to us at Quest, there's a benefit for you and a benefit for them. They get $25 off the account opening fee. You get $25 credited to your IRAs. I have literally had clients refer so many clients to me that it has covered some of their ongoing fees, not just the account opening fee, but even more. So there's no cap on it, no number of times that you can do it. So do it as often as you can. And then finally, just remember, if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to myself here in the Dallas office. My name is Steve, or you can just contact our general number. You can speak to anybody on the IRA specialist team. We're all here to help. The QR code that you see is a link to the team schedule through Calendly. It's a very simple way to just go in and find a time that's convenient for you, and we will call you when it's good for you. So after that, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Roy.
To Roy.
To
yes.
Roy.
Yes, if y'all have trouble, we're co-hosting today as Alan and Roy. And if you have trouble remembering which is which, I'm the good-looking one, funny one. And then you'll discover later he's the smart one. So you might want to take more notes when he's talking than when I'm talking. But first of all, we'd love to thank Quest for inviting us here. We would really appreciate Steve bringing us here. Alan, if you'd like to take your mic, I think Steve would like to go hide so he can disavow any knowledge of what I say.
And don't forget, you also have this. This is the cube that you can throw for anyone who has questions, and it'll get them on the mic. But it's perfectly safe. It's child approved. So.
And we're going to test that theory later. And so y'all pay attention because my aim is terrible. I'll be trying to throw it to him and hit her. So just stay on your toes, all right? Well, my name is Roy Mullen. A little bit of my background. I've held as many as 5 securities licenses, an insurance license, a mortgage license, a driver's license, a marriage license. I just tend to collect licenses. If I see a license I don't have, I go, I need one of those. I wonder what it does. So I've been in financial services about 30 years, and thank you again for taking some time out today to come and listen about this. I know that self-directed IRAs have been traditionally used for making investments in real estate, so we're here to introduce you to a way that you might want to diversify that. This is for your risk capital. This is not your bread and butter capital, so whatever you set aside for risk capital, because by definition, startup companies on track to NASDAQ are going to come with a certain amount of risk. Part of what we do with Karmic Payback is de-risk the heck out of that thing before it ever is presented to you. We're going to look at 100 deals and find 1 or 2 we think are worthy, what we call an investable product, an investable company. At that point, we're going to bring it to you. But part of what we're going to be covering today is the sectors that we look at, how we de-risk a program, why you would want to look at using some of your risk capital for an investment in this area. So with that, I want to introduce you to my longtime business partner, Alan Sanders. He and I have been together for 20 years, and as I say, he is a lot smarter than I am, but what I admire most about Alan, and he's got lots of impressive things in his resume, but I think more important than that are the core values. He always starts with the client first and is going to do the right thing for the client, which may be telling you, no, this is not a good investment strategy for you. We're a firm believer that there is math, and we're going to talk about math today. You're going to learn some math today. Hope you take good notes. But more than that, I think you have to balance that. I think perhaps even more important than that is sleep at night. Okay? So if we talk to you about an Asian pork belly commodity market linked to the blockchain thing, and you're like, what is that? That sounds scary, and you can't sleep at night, then that's a bad financial plan. We're not going to let you participate in something like that. You need to be comfortable with the risk involved, and you need a deep understanding of what you're investing in, and that's one of the things we do really well. And Alan is just off the chart, really good at making sure the client understands what we're doing, why we're doing it, and why it's a good fit for your objectives. Because what you want to invest in may be completely different than what would be fit and comfortable for him. Okay? So with that, I'd like to introduce you to my longtime friend and business partner, Alan Sanders.
All right, thanks, Roy. So yeah, I mean, to that point that Roy was just making, we actually work with clients on protecting money as well. So we use a lot of annuities and insurance products and things to protect their assets. And those sometimes are in IRAs. They can make, there's good examples of that, but we absolutely love to help clients discover that there are ways that they can use risk capital and do things with it that they may not have thought that they could do. Besides just real estate. Real estate's great. And then create those extremes so that they can make really good money from some of their risk capital and use that money then to add to their net worth and put that back in something safe. Now it's protected. They know they can count on it. They can create an income from it later. So we like both extremes, right? So my background, I actually grew up in Texas, in the Houston area, went to high school, Montgomery High School, north of Houston, and then went to North Texas, right up the road here, for a music degree, believe it or not. So I was a musician, music teacher, got my first job in Austin for 6 years, taught there, loved it as a first career, stepping stone career. And then I met this crazy guy in the financial world. And in the same type of company, we both got started and went through every possible permutation, all those licenses he talked about, have been in every financial realm you might think of. My favorite so far has been this. We've had a great time. We got a lot of clients that we do the protection type stuff with, but kitchen table type stuff, but we love doing this. And the reason we love doing this is because typically speaking, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, most of these big IPOs that you hear about, the Facebooks of the world and the Airbnbs and all that other stuff, the thing that I used to think before I understood this was, how did people get in that deal before it went public, right? How do they do that? Well, you got to know somebody. That's really the bottom line. You got to know the people that are helping get that deal done. It might not be Facebook. It might not be Airbnb, but there's a lot of companies. There were over 1,000 IPOs in 2021. It set a record, right? A lot of them. So it's coming back. There was a lot less last year because of the market, but we love what we do. We're going to talk to you guys more about that today. We hope you'll at least just express an interest in hearing more about what we do. We'll put you on our newsletter, but just that's it for me.
You gonna do the overview?
Oh, yeah. So,
It's a brief commercial break. No.
yeah. Next slide, or who's doing the slides? Ah, there we go. There we go. Oh, we didn't do the disclaimer.
Ah, yes.
Always have to do this.
Yeah, if y'all ever seen one of these, good. We don't have to read it to you. This is disclaimer, disclaimer, no guarantees, past performance, no guarantee of future results, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you have trouble sleeping, we can send you a copy of that. Okay, is that fair?
All right. We already introduced ourselves. There we go. Okay, so the overview of what we're going to talk about today. First of all, you're going to learn some interesting things from Roy. Roy's a closet thespian. He's an actor in Austin. He's very well known. He's won some awards, done very well. So he's gonna entertain you guys a little bit. We're going to talk about a thing called compound interest, and he's got a very interesting way to explain it, and it makes it kind of fun to understand. We're going to talk about stocks and how they work and how to get involved with them before they go public, that life cycle. We're also going to talk about how do you use your Quest IRA to do that. That's the interesting piece of this, right? And we love using IRA money. It is a fantastic capital market for us, right? So we like doing that. We're going to talk about some case studies and some companies we've actually worked with, some ones we're currently working with that are headed towards an IPO or some sort of exit. And then we're going to also talk about a couple of other things that you're going to have some surprises on. So that's it for me. Then we're going to move on to Roy's explanation of the rule of 72.
Well, before we get into that, you probably should know a little bit more about me. He did out me. I'm a closet thespian. I do have a background a bit in acting, so we want to make sure that you're not going to fall asleep during this presentation, so I'm going to scare you a little bit. One of the best ways to give you some insight about me and how I approach this is to share one of my favorite stories from Mark Twain. Do we have any Mark Twain fans in here? Oh, thank you. I can't tell you how many times I teach it to high school students. They get this blank look, and I'm going, I'm going to have to come back and teach your American Lit class. You don't get to graduate without understanding who Mark Twain is, right? Well, one of my favorite stories is Mark Twain when he was a cub reporter for the San Francisco Examiner. And his boss called him in and said, I want you to go interview Mr. Wheeler and ask him about his grandfather's old ram. And Mark Twain goes, grandfather's old ram? What kind of a news story is that? He said, okay, fine, you're the boss. So he tracked down Mr. Wheeler and he said, Mr. Wheeler, I understand you have an interesting story about your grandfather's old ram. And Mr. Wheeler said, oh, yes, oh, grandfather's old ram. Oh, I remember that well, yes. Well, grandfather, don't you see, he was bent down. He was fumbling in the grass looking for a 10-cent piece, don't you see? And the ram was up on the hill with his eye full of business. And grandfather, he was fumbling in the grass, grandfather, he married Sarah Harrigan, that's right. Oh, I remember Sarah, yes. Well, Sarah had a glass eye, don't you see? And she had been excavated for a size 14, but sometimes she borrowed her neighbor's eye, which was a size 7. And sometimes, it was gilded on the back, and it was blue on the front. And when Sarah would put it in, sometimes when she got excited, the eye would begin to whirl. And it would flash first blue, then gold, then blue, then gold, then blue, then gold. Well, the adults didn't mind, but it most always made the children cry. And that would remind Mr. Wheeler of something else, and that would remind him of something else. And eventually, Mr. Wheeler would fall asleep, and you never did find out about grandfather's old ram. Now, I don't know if they have a name for that disease, but I have it. And I have about 5 hours of material I'd like to share with you, and somehow Quest is only going to give us 45 minutes. So if I get too far afield, I want you to raise your hand and say grandfather's old ram, and I'll go back and look at my notes and get back on track. Do we have a deal? Okay, fair enough. I did that with my high school students one time as visiting professor, and the kid raised his hand and went, grandfather's old ram, you should go look at your notes. So anyway, one of the things I want to teach you today is something from Albert Einstein. So the next time you're at a cocktail party and you're trying to think of an icebreaker, I want you to start talking about Albert Einstein, see how that goes for you. No, just kidding. Albert Einstein, obviously a very smart guy, came up with a lot of cool ideas. One of his personal favorites was the rule of 72. How many of you know the rule of 72? Oh my gosh, a hand was raised. 2 hands were raised. That's a record. I don't know if I've had that many hands raised. I've taught this class to MBA students, and not a hand went up. You shouldn't be able to get that far in your education and not have come across this. The rule of thumb, basically, is how long does it take your money to double at a given interest rate? Okay, so it's a good rule of thumb. So as an example, if I had $1 and I found a very generous bank and it gave me 1% interest, At the end of the year, I now have $1.01, right? 1% interest. The next year, that $1.01 earns another penny and a little bit more. Doing that, how long does it take $1 to become $2? That's not fair. No cheating back there. I'll give you a hint. The answer is on the board. It's going to take 72 years for that $1 to become $2 at a 1% interest rate. And even as young as you are, I don't know how many 72s you got left to double your money, okay? But the cool thing about the rule of 72 is whatever interest rate you're getting, you can divide it into 72, and it will tell you roughly how many years it's going to take your money to double. So let's assume for a moment, when I was age 20, that my great Aunt Matilda gave me $10,000. All right. Now, of course, if my great Aunt Matilda had given me $10,000 when I was 20, we would have had a great party that weekend and the $10,000 would be gone. But you're smarter than I am, right? You're going to put it in a nice bond fund or something, right? And we're going to earn about 4% interest. Yay. So we're going to take 4 divided into 72, and that's 18. So now my money's going to double every 18 years instead of every 72 years. That's progress, right? So 18 years later, when I'm 38, it will have doubled to 20,000. 18 years after that, when I'm 56, it will have doubled to 40,000, and I'm ready to retire for about 6 weeks, okay? If that's my retirement nest egg, then my retirement plan is also going to include, would you like fries with that? Okay? That's not going to have us for a very comfortable retirement. I hope that's not your retirement goal, right? So when I was first learning this stuff, I thought, you know, if I could get 12%, that's what the 70-year average is for small cap mutual funds, about a 12% rate of return. Again, we're not talking about a specific investment disclaimer. This is a math exercise, right? Okay, but if I got 12%, I thought, man, if I got 12%, I got 3 times the rate of return. I'll have 3 times as much money. That's cool. It's actually much more powerful than that. You get a lot more doubles. Let's divide 12 into 72. That's 6. So at the same age 20, I'm going to start with the same $10,000. But now at 26, it's doubled to 20,000. At 32, it's 40. At 38, it's 80. At 44, it's 160. At 50, it is 320. And at the same age 56, it's $640,000. Now, your first test of the day, one more zero. Your first test of the day, which one do you like better? Don't answer in case you get it wrong, okay? I think we'd rather have 640,000 in retirement, right? Does that seem reasonable? Okay, cool. When I'm teaching my high school students, I'll say, yeah, but here's what happens. At age 20, you're going to go, well, I'm still in college. I got bills to pay. I got this, and I got that. Retirement's a million years from now. I got plenty of time to wait. I'm going to wait till I'm 26. That'll be plenty of time. I'll get started. You wait till you're 26, you just missed out on that double. And at 26, you go, I just got out of college. I got to buy a new car. I need new clothes for my new job. And oh my gosh, retirement's a long way off. I can wait. You wait till you're 32 to get started. You just missed out on that double. The point being, the most valuable asset you have in retirement planning is time. Use it wisely. Okay, start now. Whatever you're doing, start now. Do more, right? I also tell you that the rule of 72 is amoral. It does not care if it's working for you or against you. So at age 20, I got an envelope in the mail from MasterCard. If I got a deal for you, it's only 18% interest on your $10,000 credit line. And I go, great, I'm going to Paris. We're going to have a nice lunch. It's going to be wonderful. And I max it out. I come back from Paris. It's maxed out. It's no good anymore. I throw it in the desk drawer and I forget about it. For some reason, MasterCard forgets about it. And MasterCard wakes up one day when I'm 56 and goes, Roy, we need to talk. All right? So it's been compounding at 18% over the same period of time. How much do you think I owe MasterCard? The correct answer is a lot. How about $5.1 million? Okay. Now, obviously, MasterCard's not going to forget about us all this time, but I do want you to understand the power of debt, credit card debt, if it's pushing against you and you're trying to climb out of a hole. All right. And that's at 18%. You don't want to see 24 or 31. Oh, it gets complicated. We'll have an after-class discussion on that one. Anyway, so yes. So the point is, rule of 72, the exercise is, this is why you want to look at investment opportunities that give you a chance for a higher rate of return. Does that make sense? Again, this is going to be for your risk capital, okay? We're not going to be talking about anything today that comes with a guarantee. So Take that off your list. But if you have some risk capital, yes.
What is your average rate of return for the investments of your program?
That's a darn good question. I don't think I'm allowed to say that in public. We'll have to talk after class. So, but it's better than that. Can I say that? I don't know if I'm supposed to say that out loud. Can you all edit that out of the recording? Anyway, just kidding. All right, if the compliance officer is watching, I was just kidding. Come on, take a joke. All right, so with that, I think it's time to turn it back to Alan and let him talk about pre-IPO, which is why you came in the first place, unless you just wanted to be entertained about Mark Twain. All right, you want to learn about IPOs? Alan.
All right, so to not completely avoid your question, ma'am, we can talk about things that we've done. Can never predict the future, of course. Past performance is no indication of future results and blah, 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 blah. But in the past, we've had some pretty nice successes, yeah. And it's because of our process, right? So we because of what Roy mentioned earlier, we may look at 100 deals and only 1 or 2 pass this entire huge due diligence process we go through. And we're helping those companies, even the ones that don't make it into that top bucket, we're still helping them as well. We're helping them go find money from, Jay over here is in banking. We're helping them find lending institutions. We're helping them find solutions to help them get better. But they may not be the ones that we put in front of you that say, this one's investable. This one, in our opinion, and we're not guaranteeing anything, there still could be risk there, right? But in our opinion, because of all the things we've taken them through, and we have a very incredible CFO on our staff, and he goes through the numbers, and it's like going to the doctor and getting naked. I mean, he takes them through every tiny detail that you can possibly imagine of de-risking the numbers, at least, and the planning side. So we take them through all this process. So once they get to that level where it's a deal that we're going to put in front of people like you guys, it's been through a process. That's why there's been some successes. Cannot guarantee those are going to happen again, right? There's the disclaimer. All right. So again, going back to the story of, how do you get into this world? Well, Roy and I have been through all these other financial realms, and we always knew that there was some way, somehow, that you could find ways to get into these deals, right? Well, we came across the guys that do this kind of stuff, and we started getting involved, investing ourselves and finding other people and just kind of helping from afar. And we liked it so much that we started just moving more and more and more into doing this more full time. And it's pretty much almost everything we do now. We still help a little bit with the more traditional financial planning stuff. But the way you get into these deals is you got to know companies. You got to know the companies that are out there seeking capital. Well, guess how many companies are seeking capital? All of them. They all need money, right? Every single company, unless they're just not doing things correctly, should be trying to find new capital, whether it's through lending, it's through equity, it's through whatever means, because they can always use more cash to do something good. It's either going to shore up their balance sheet. It's going to put them in a position where they can actually grow. They can do an M&A. There's all kinds of reasons. So they're always looking for money. It's how they go find that money, right? That's the difference. And who do they go to for that money? So the paradigm shift that we bring to the table a lot of times is when we go in to go talk to a company, they have been conditioned because of all the stuff that's already out there to, I got to go just bootstrap it in the beginning myself, friends and family. A lot of people call it the FFF group, which is friends, families, and fools, right? They're the ones that invest in the beginning, and that's okay because you can make a lot of money sometimes being in that early seed capital round, right? So you get that going, and then you move into another realm, which is, okay, now I got to go find bigger investors. Where does that usually come from? VC firms, private equity firms, big investors, tech billionaires, blah, 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 blah. They take a huge chunk of their hide when they do that, and they should because there's a risk, right? So we try to help show these companies there's another lane. You can step over into this lane. Don't go down that path. Not every company is going to qualify for this, but the ones that do, they jump over into the I'm going to be on the NASDAQ path eventually. And in the meantime, the way they raise their money is going to be through people like you guys, private investors, smaller chunks that don't eat up so much capital. It's a win-win for you. It's a win-win for them because they give less of the company away. And when they get to the end, we want them to get to the NASDAQ still owning at least 60% of the company. That's our goal every time. But the investors along the way also get a bite at the apple. And now all that money is not gobbled up by the traditional financial institutions that do that stuff. So it's just a different way to look at it, right? So that's what we do. Let's see. How do we qualify them? We'd have to show you the process. It's a long due diligence list. One of the main things that we like is it's going to be a funny sounding term, but I'll give you an example. We're working with an aviation company based in Miami right now. And we like to find companies that have a sugar daddy already on board. There's somebody that's already put a bunch of money in that deal. And this guy's put probably $3 or $4 million of his own money, their sugar daddy. He's a billionaire, tech billionaire, made a ton of money off selling one of his companies. He owns a yacht, da, 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 da. He's put all this money in this company. Why is that important? Because that means if that company starts getting in trouble, he's going to go save his own money. He's going to put more money in, and he's got the deep pockets to save it, right? It's going to have great management. It's going to have this and this and this and this, all these other things. But we like, there's about 12 different major ones and about 50 minor ones that we take people through. And if they qualify for all those, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to meet the criteria where we would put them in front of you guys. All right. So that's it for me. Oh, I was going to talk about OTC versus NASDAQ. We don't always try to get a company all the way to NASDAQ. Sometimes we can use what's called the OTC markets, right? Over the counter. But there's a very specific way you can do that to avoid all the pitfalls that tend to happen in the OTC markets. So we have that process as well. So I think that's it for me.
I thought you're not doing life cycle of a deal next?
Oh, yes, I do.
There's smaller market values, smaller, crudely put, think penny stocks, but that's not really, there are stratifications within that. And we don't deal with bottom feeders. That sounds harsh. So we're not doing that strata. Correct. They just need one more step before we get them to a NASDAQ. Most of the ones we work with, there's a path directly from private to NASDAQ. That's one of the criteria we're looking for. Correct.
Absolutely.
Correct. Some of the companies we work with are positioning themselves to be acquired, not to go public. And that's fine too. The key is we don't invest in a private company and say, we hope you figure out an exit someday. Wish you well. We already know that we skipped to the last chapter. We know the butler did it before we started the book. Okay. So we already have a clear path to the exit, whatever that is, M&A, IPO, whatever it might be. And we have an executable plan that's going to make sure we get there. We talked to some folks yesterday that said, yeah, I invested in a private company. They thought they were going to go public. That was 5 years ago. We're still waiting. Wow. Okay. Well, they didn't talk to us because that's not the way that would work. So, all right. And that is one of the issues. If we don't see that clear path, wish you well. Go back to your friends and family and fools because we're not doing that one. All right. So.
In that example, Alan, you gave that it looks like you're getting diluted along the way. So you have just waiting to get in the last phase before there's additional dilution along the way.
We are getting diluted, or you're getting diluted.
Whoever.
Yeah, everybody potentially is getting diluted along the way. Yes, but there are ways that we can make sure that happens in a smart way. And in fact, we can put you in a position as an early investor where you do not get diluted. The only people getting diluted are the management. That's another strategy that we use. So that's a great question. We're going to get to that. If you can hold that question, we're going to get to that in just a little bit. Okay.
Thank you.
Because that's a moving target, but there's some averages.
But that means you're paying attention. So thank you.
Yeah. Restricted stock is the next one, actually. You want to talk about
Restricted stock. Okay. So what that means is, and it's there for a good place, restricted stock means you can't sell it yet. Okay. So if you're going to participate in that sweet pre-IPO, either there's typically 1 and 2 rounds of pre-IPO money getting raised. We'll explain a little bit about how that works. But then when it goes public, you can't say, ooh, I bought it at 50 cents. It opened at $5 at NASDAQ, which is minimum NASDAQ. I opened at $5. I want to, it's restricted. Because you would damage the company if everybody that participated before the public offering dumped their stock on day one. You've damaged the company and the other investors. That's not cool. So it's not even our rule. That's the SEC rule. Your stock is going to be restricted. All right. Sometime, typically for a year. All right. There are triggers that might release it sooner. We're going to talk mostly plain vanilla stuff today, right? There are subtleties and nuances on individual cases, but there will be some cases where 70% of your stock is restricted. The other 30% you could sell day one. Getting into the weeds a little bit. Grandfather's old ram, something. Oh, okay. Anyway, as a general rule, your stock is going to be restricted for a year from the day it goes IPO. Okay, and then we can talk about exceptions beyond that, but work under that assumption. All right, does that help? Okay, cool. So that's what restricted stock means.
Yeah. Now, one clarification on the restrictions is that you may have been able to get out before it went IPO. So there's mechanisms that we try to build in to give investors choices. One would be a convertible note. So you may be lending the company money, technically, just like you would do kind of in a real estate deal. And that may be, just as an example, you're putting in $10,000, $25,000, whatever it is. And that note is for a year. So you have it up to a year. And during that year, you can choose to convert over to equity in the company because you feel like it's headed towards a good exit. It's going to either get purchased or it's going to go IPO. Or, you know what? I either for some reason need my capital back, or I want my capital back for a different opportunity. I got a real estate deal to do, whatever. You can tell the company up until that year. There's usually trigger points even during the year with less interest. But at the end of that year, it may have a 12% premium is what we call it. And the reason we call it a premium is because if the company lets you take the money out early, we don't have to do all those pro rata calculations. They just give you 12% no matter what day they give you the money back. You might get it back in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year. You get 12%. That's one way you might be able to get your money back, right? Or it may have an acquisition happen before the IPO. Or there may be another investor that just wants to buy your position out and buy you out and say, I'll take your shares and I'll buy you out. That's rare, but that can happen. After the IPO is when those restrictions happen. So pre-IPO, there's all kinds of liquidity possibilities that we can create for you. Okay, life cycle of a deal. Let's get to that. So this is specific to, there's a life cycle of a deal that is sort of just the whole life cycle of a deal. But what we're going to talk about today is how a Quest IRA holder and investor could potentially get involved. So as you can see on the chart up here, you've got, this is the Quest IRA side, okay? So if you've got money sitting in a Quest IRA or a Roth IRA, we're going to give you some interesting strategies on how to get more money into a Roth, by the way, as well today. Let's say you got money sitting in your Quest IRA, and let's just call the minimum on this deal that we're looking at is $25,000, and you've got $50,000 in your Quest IRA. There will be an instrument of some kind. It'll either be a convertible note, it'll be a subscription agreement, it's going to be some document that we can help coordinate. We've done this a bunch of times with people that have Quest IRAs. We help you fill that paperwork out, and then Quest signs on behalf of you, FBO, your name, your account number, et cetera, and Quest invests your money in that deal, okay? So that's up in here. Let's say it's the pre-IPO stage, and you're getting it at technically 50 cents a share because it's a subscription agreement. It's just a direct buy. It's not a convertible note. So you bought in at 50 cents a share through your IRA or your Roth. We're then going to be taking that company through all those processes we talked about, right? We've already done the due diligence to say that they're investable, but now they got to go through all this stuff to get ready to go public. There's a bunch of legal work and audits and all kinds of stuff. SEC filings, we got attorneys and everybody. We outsource all that. We don't do all that. They're doing all that work. So then it gets all the way down to, there may be another round. Maybe you had 50,000 in your IRA. Now you want to put another 25,000 in, and that next 25,000 is $1 a share, right? Why would you do that? Why would you buy 50 cents and then $1? Well, because there may be different restrictions on those two buckets. This one may only have a 6-month restriction after the IPO. You're getting it at $1, but you don't have to wait as long, whatever. So let's say you do both of those. Then it gets all the way through all that stuff and finally goes public. And this is pretty close to a real example that we've done. It went public at 5. This was restricted for a year. This was only restricted for 6 months. Well, the people that got in at $1 and it was still hovering around 5, going back to your question, they had a pretty good payday, right? When the restrictions were released, they now can get back out. So what happens then is the fact that it went public, Quest cannot hold that anymore, right? They can't hold a publicly traded stock for you. So we then coordinate with Quest to convert that paper that they're holding to the paper that is going to be given to you, which is real shares. The money will then roll over into a Charles Schwab or a Fidelity or whatever other place you want to hold those shares. You roll the money there. Those shares then are attached to that. You own those shares now there. So your Quest IRA bucket now just got emptied from at least that piece that you got. That money's now over there, or the shares. Let's say you sell them. Okay, you sell them. Now you've harvested the IPO in that account at Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Ameritrade, whatever, and now you have cash over there. Guess what you can do with that cash? You can roll it back to Quest and start all over again and do another one. And we've had people go through this process multiple times with us. It's pretty cool. None of these transactions created a taxable event for you because it was always still either an IRA or a Roth or a SEP or whatever it was, right? You're using those funds to do all these activities. We'll make sure that the paperwork's always done to avoid the taxable hit, but then this whole cycle can just get recreated again. So that's it.
Rinse and repeat, right? So how many of you in general think taxes over the next 20 or 30 years, tax rates in general, are going to go up or down? Up, up, up. I did one, we had, a couple of hundred people, and they did an online poll. 5% said they were going to come down. I'm like, really? Okay, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to the smart people on the other side. Anyway, yes, how could they not go up, correct? And it feels painful April 15th. You think tax rates are really high now. Historically, these are actually pretty low tax rates. So something for you to think about, if you have a traditional IRA, why not go ahead perhaps now and convert it to your Roth now, take your tax hit now at a relatively low tax rate, make it a Roth, do what Alan just said, put it in at 50 cents, take it out at $5, and never pay taxes on the gain, never pay taxes on the distribution later. How does that sound? And in the future, when you're wanting to take this out, so 100 years from now, when you're 59 and a half, you don't care what the tax rates are because you're not paying them, okay? So if you think they're gonna go up, take your tax hit now, perhaps, and take it for free later on. And guess what? There are no RMDs. You can choose when you want to take the money out. If you have taxable buckets and non-taxable buckets, you can choose a blended income stream to manage the tax bracket you're in. How does that sound? I want you to have options, right? I want you to have choices. If all of it's in my 401k and I need X to live on, that's the only bucket I've got. I guess I'll have to just take my tax hit, whatever it is. If you have options, you can manage your tax rate. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. And I've also had some wealthy people go, oh, Roy, I'm sorry, I make way too much money. I don't qualify for a Roth IRA. And I go, well, let me show you a gaping loophole. Okay. Do you have earned income? Yes, you make a lot of money in earned income. Maximum contribution to a SEP IRA, which is just a bigger bucket, a bigger traditional IRA for self-employed, you could put $66,000 in 2023 in your SEP IRA. And you can do that on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, you got a $66,000 tax deduction. Congratulations. On Wednesday, we converted it to a Roth. You now have a Roth. They told you you couldn't have one. Look what magic trick. Nothing up my sleeve, right? So on Tuesday, it was a traditional SEP IRA with $66,000. I got a deduction. On Wednesday, I converted it to a Roth. I just added $66,000 back to my income for that year. That's what's known as a zero-sum gain. Okay? What are the tax consequences of that? Not much. Okay? And now I've got all that money in a Roth IRA. Let's go do some of this, right? So anyway, we can help you with that. Obviously, the Quest people know all about how to do that. They can coach you through that transaction. Painless, all right? So think about doing that. Yes, sir.
Into that too, I can still do a SEP even though I'm not self-employed.
No, you need self-employment income.
You do need self-employment income, and your CPA will tell you how much of that $66,000 you're qualified to put in there. So in my example, somebody had a lot of self-employment income and they could max it out. Your CPA may say, you only have X amount of income this year, you can only put $10,000 in your SEP or something. Or you have no self-employment income, you can't use a SEP, you'll have to use a traditional IRA, which I think the limit's $7,500 this year, is that right?
If
If you're over 50, the catch-up provision. Yeah, the catch-up, right.
But
So-
yeah, to your question, Jay, I mean, yes, most people, it just pure W-2 income, no, you can't do a SEP. But a lot of people have side hustles, right? They're doing something. They're making money from real estate. They're doing something. Deliberately make some of that money available and go talk to your CPA, make sure this is, qualifies. But usually up to 100% of all of your self-employment income can go in a SEP. All of it. I mean, now you get a tax deduction for putting it in there, and then you just convert it to a Roth. It's literally like you just did this, legal way to get all that money in a non-taxable environment forever. Now you can use it in something like this or real estate or whatever you want to do. So pretty cool. That was his idea that he came up with. Okay. Next.
I'm surprised how many financially sophisticated people I've shared that with where they go, wait a minute, what? Like, how did you not? I couldn't have invented that. Come on. But it's a lot of fun. As you might have picked up, we love to teach and share. We want people well educated about what we're doing, why they're doing it, why this investment fits for you, and that one doesn't, or maybe none of them do, or whatever. All right.
Okay. Next one is
next one is
must use a
accredited?
self-directed.
Yes. Oh, do we?
That's you.
Did I get mine out of order? I did, didn't I? What happened to accredited investor?
That's next.
That's next. Wow. Okay. Grandfather's old ram. I'm doing fine. Okay. Don't worry about me. Y'all having fun? No one's asleep yet, are they? I've never had anyone fall asleep in one of my seminars. I don't know why, but somehow no one falls asleep. So you must, everything we just described on that chart over there, you have to start with a self-directed IRA. Charles Schwab is not going to let you invest in a private company and go through all that stuff. You need to have your account with Quest, okay, to do all of this stuff. And then it is that rinse and repeat. Once it's gone public, you move it over there, you liquidate it, you take the cash, you move it back into this. You started with 10,000, now it's 50,000. Which number do you like better? Let's rinse and repeat and do the next one, right? If this has been a good experience for you. And philosophically, we want a relatively small pool of investors. We don't do rape, pillage, and burn. We don't savage our investor. They had a horrible experience. We leave them dead and bleeding on the side of the road and go, okay, we got to go find a new one. No, I want you to have a great experience with this so that when we come back and say, here's what we're doing next, you're like, oh, great, where do we wire the money? That was cool, okay? We have yet to have an investor, and we haven't been doing this for 100 years, but we've yet to have an investor have a bad experience, okay? Maybe it wasn't a 500% return, it went from $1 to $1.80. Oh, darn. You only had an 80% return this year, we'll try to do better next time, okay? Disclaimer, all right? So, but we take all that very seriously, all right? So accredited investor is the next slide. Therefore, I should be talking about why you're doing the self-directed, which I just covered. So now it's back to accredited investor, which strangely enough is also my slide. Y'all be surprised to learn. So an accredited investor, does everybody here know what that is? Okay, cool, all right. If you don't know what that is, you probably aren't. So that sounds harsh. Anyway, roughly an individual has to make $200,000 a year. You have to have a net worth excluding your private residence of $1 million, all right? So most of the deals we're gonna be talking about require you to be an accredited investor. We have exceptions to that. So if you're not an accredited investor, we still should talk, but I would say 80% or something. I just made that number up. 87% of all statistics are made up on the spot. Did y'all know that? Okay, anyway. Most of our investors would have to be accredited investors, all right? So if y'all need further discussion about that, take it offline. You get my business card out there somewhere. Alan's got his card. Send us an email and we can talk about that.
Yeah, we have some very attractive opportunities for non-accredited. So
Yeah.
don't get scared by him saying that if you're like, well, I don't qualify. And we have some really, really good opportunities for
You should get
non-accredited.
scared by other things I say, but not that one. Okay, just kidding.
You know, accreditation or whatever that is you're self-selecting, you're self-reporting, right? In most cases, but you fill out a form, you say all this stuff, and you just put that on file. But so it's up to you in a way, right? If you say you're accredited and you're not, and then something happens later, then that's on you. But you know, you're supposed to self-report. But we don't do that. We don't do that due diligence.
We're not going to ask for your tax returns. We're not going to do any of that stuff. Okay?
None of the companies we work with do. It would be cumbersome to even go through that process. So they just have forms that they have people fill out. They file them, and then you're reporting that yourself. That getting that data from everybody and putting it on file, and there's systems that we have that are, you know, they're tied to the IRS, they're tied to everything. So they're following, you know, very strict compliance rules. In every case I've seen, certain deals, if we're asking for $5 million from somebody, sure, they may take them through the ringer and even get tax returns and all that. But for all these smaller, you know, 10, 25,000, 50,000 type investments, they're just putting data on file that you filled out that attested to, I answered this, and that's on file. So.
All right, and I think I probably skipped a slide and I've already done Roth versus traditional. So did anybody want me to repeat that? I didn't think so. Okay, fine. So next one is, Alan's favorite one because he likes alliterations. So,
Golly. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself too. There we go. All right. So my wife is an author, and so she always messes with me about alliterations. And so this alliteration is 6 sexy sectors, right? So there's a lot of really good companies out there in other sectors, but these are the ones that we don't push people to go this direction, right? These just tend to be the ones that work real well. And there's a reason for that, right? It's because of the way the market is recognizing the value of these companies that tend to be in these sectors. So technology, SaaS, everybody know what SaaS is, software as a service, just exploding industry, right? I mean, almost every Every software that you used to use that you had to download and put on your computer and have new updates shipped to you in a CD and all that other stuff, it's all just in the cloud, right? And you just subscribe to it, pay a monthly fee. That's software as a service. There's thousands and thousands of startups per year that do that kind of stuff. So we got some great ones, but there's also a really cool new niche, which is called robots as a service, RAAS, and that is an exploding industry. We've got a few really cool companies, one based in New Mexico, right down the road from where I live. And what they do is they have helped develop these systems where they use these robots. Some of them are tiny robots that just sit in an assembly line. Some are huge robots that paint airplanes or whatever they do. And instead of the companies buying these robots, they just lease them as a monthly fee. So they'll say, well, we need 30 this month, and the next month we're going to need 90, and then we may even have to back down to 60. And they're just using the robots as they need. And these are leased out and maintenance and everything by the companies that invented them and made them. So it is a just paid service. Well, there's a massive profit margin in that if you do it right, right? Because all the CapEx and everything was all done way back. They own all these things now, and they're just leasing and leasing and leasing them. And because these companies don't have to go make these robots and they get a huge value for using them, there's a huge gross profit margin that can get created there. So there's that. Infrastructure. Roy's going to, you want to talk about the road business thing?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you look like you're, infrastructure. Sure. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to throw something at you at this point. Is that okay? We need a backstop because I'll miss. I promise you. There we go. Online. Yeah.
So, under the technology.
You have to speak into the mic. Speak into the cube. When we say speak into the cube, that wasn't what we had in mind. You fried the mic.
Okay, they can hear me now, I think, I'm looking at the first
Here, how
one,
about
but
this?
I'm thinking that 3D copiers. I'm thinking that 3D copiers and AI technology would fall into the first.
Yes.
Okay, and what about number 2? Would real estate fall into that?
Yeah.
Sort of. We're more into, in this particular case, our focus is roads and bridges and literal infrastructure, not real estate per se.
So you don't have anything with real estate?
No, you have other experts that'll come in and talk to you about real estate. That's not,
Okay.
you wouldn't
Because
want.
I know I'm with EXP, and I know when they went public, but then again, I'm getting ready to transfer to LPT. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that company. Oh, y'all should look at it.
Yes, tell us more.
LPT really is gonna outdo EXP, so y'all might want to look into that one.
Absolutely. Get my card.
We would
Tell
never
me
say no
more.
to looking at something. That's for sure. Okay.
They're public. They're about a year out.
Okay, so infrastructure. Again, we're just kind of give you a flavor of some of the kinds of deals we look at it under these categories. So infrastructure, there's a road technology right now for the last 100 years. If you're building a road, you're using Portland cement and lime, and you put it in the ground as the base material. You put asphalt on top of it. And when the base fails, the asphalt falls into the hole where the base used to be. That's the pothole that you're driving over. That's what happened. The base failed, right? So what if you could make the base stronger? And right now, if you're going to make the base stronger, you throw more Portland cement in it. And that makes it more brittle. And it's going to crack sooner. And water's going to get in and freeze, thaw cycles, and it cracks sooner and fails sooner. But that's the only tools they've had in the toolbox. There's a technology out there now that we've been working with for over a year where you just take the existing road. Let me give you an example in Laredo. Y'all may not know this. Laredo is the second largest port in the US, and it has no ships. It's everything going south from the US and everything coming north from Mexico and points south comes through Laredo, all right? Therefore, heavy trucks, therefore failed roads. Therefore, we should talk, okay? So they had a road that had failed because of heavy oil field trucks driving over it and just crushing the road. So the county needed to rebuild the road, got a grant from the TxDOT department for counties that have roads that have failed because of oil field activity because they're not getting money from those guys. So you just break my road, you didn't fix my road. Their plan was to take the 1 mile of failed road, dig it up, haul it to a landfill, materials they've already paid for, dig them up, haul them to a landfill, dump them, not environmentally a great option, and bring in all new road materials. And guess what? They're all new road materials are the same materials that just failed. What's going to happen to the road again? It's going to fail again, right? It's one definition of insanity, doing the same thing, expecting a different result. How would you like to take the new technology, which comes in a powdered form, is customized to the base materials that are in situ at that location? You test them at the lab, come back with your special blended formula, add the powder in there just like you would Portland cement, add water, compress. It is impervious to water, to freeze thaw, to heavy trucks. You could land an airplane on it and it wouldn't care. All right? And we actually use demonstrations where we'll take a puck. This is your current base material. It looks solid. And we take the lithified puck, put them in jars of water. That one falls apart within 45 minutes. I said, which one do you want to put your expensive asphalt on? Because you can come back 5 years from now, that won't have lost a flake. And by the way, we're going to take your existing materials. Therefore, we're going to cut the timeline off. Imagine how long it takes you to dig all of the failed road out and haul it away before you even start putting the new road in. How about if we just grind up the existing material, add powder, add water? We save them $400,000 on 1 mile of road. Do you think we have a product that ought to be out there? We're this close to TxDOT approval on this product. We have a guy that works at the top levels of 45 of the 50 DOTs in the country. He's getting a national approval for this product. We make $25,000 of profit per mile. TxDOT alone does $2 billion a year rebuilding failed roads. I'm sorry. Yeah, hurricanes don't always take out roads except if they just wash everything around it away. They have taken out some bridges, you're correct. And this particular technology would not be that applicable to bridges. It's going to be primarily heavy trafficked roads. It's not going to be for residential roads that have a couple of Priuses driving on it. That's not really what this does. But if you have 50 miles of I-35, bring it on. We'll save you $1 billion or more, right? So that's one of the technologies and infrastructure that has a huge opportunity. Think about that. Texas has 685,000 miles of road. Okay, we're not going to replace all those roads. If we replace 10% just in Texas at $25,000 profit per mile, you do the math. I don't know if your calculator will go that far. Okay, so that's an example of an infrastructure company that intrigues us, and we're going to be funding that one. It's currently private. It should go public.
Yeah. So again, just an example, and we've got space companies. That's a huge growing industry. It's amazing, actually, all the private companies that are out there that are sending stuff up in space. You just blow your mind. Thousands and thousands and thousands of new satellites and things going up every year. You're like, what is all this? Where's this happening? Medical, healthcare, huge industry, of course. It's recession proof. And we've got companies that are doing some very disruptive technologies and disruptive ways of doing business in that arena. Cybersecurity and green. Green would be, alternate energies, et cetera. Any of those, they tend to, if the company has gone through the diligence process that we have, and they're in one of these sectors, you got a pretty high batting average. You're going to have a good success rate of having a good experience with those. All right.
I think, how are we doing on our time? We're okay? Good. All right. Let me give you one more example just on the medical field, if that's okay. Is that right? We have a company that has a niche market. They're just doing staffing in the mental health arena, okay, which sounds a bit odd, but they only do contracts with large payers like Aetna, Blue Cross, or state contracts for state hospitals. So you're talking 5 to 7 years of a contract. VA is actually an option we'd love. Do you have connections with the VA? Tell me more. Yes, we'd love to do that one. Yes, yes. Well, there is a big need, and as a taxpayer and an American, my apologies that our veterans need so much mental health, but you're absolutely right. We have to do a better job. So we definitely should talk, because if you can get that door open and we can start doing that, this company would pay a finder's fee for somebody that brought them a contract. So let's talk. Absolutely. But the first year of 2021, they did, and they were just in Indiana. That's the only place they were doing it. There was a mental health hospital in Indiana that the current contractor couldn't keep staffed. And this guy has built 7 companies, fabulously successful guy, a very rich guy, just building another company. And he'd never taken one public before. He'd never even taken debt before, but he was intrigued with what we do. And so we're taking him down that path. He can grow faster. In 2021, he had $1 million in revenue. Last year, he had over 7 million. This year, he's on track for over 30 million. Going to go public in April. How would you like to buy it at a discount before it goes public? Okay.
And as an example, that one does not have a long restriction period. It's 90 days after the IPO.
That's correct.
That's it. So you get, now you're not getting the discount people got, that people bought 50-cent stock in that thing way back. You're not getting that, but you're getting a pretty good discount on what we think it's going to go IPO. And then you're only going to be in 90 days and you can get out if you want. So it's pretty, that's a pretty cool restriction period.
We can tell you more offline. So there, are you all highly motivated to take our business cards and send us an email at this point? So cool. All right. What else did we want to make sure we touched on? Is that it? Was that bad? Well, do we have time for one more example, or do we need to switch to case studies? Another one in the mental health arena that is one of my personal favorites. It kind of touches my heart. All these others, road business, great. You know, it's better for the taxpayers, better for the environment, better for the roads. The roads are going to last longer. Yay, love all of that kind of stuff. But this one, there is a company out of California that developed a technology around infant skull caps to capture neurological data. There's nothing that existed like that before now. There's a professor at the University of California, San Francisco, who's developed an algorithm that if you take brainwave data, I don't want them to take mine, they'll find this flat line. Anyway, so they're gonna take that data and the algorithm is predictive. It's not diagnostic, but it's predictive that you're on track for intellectual developmental challenges. Think autism, right, for the most part, all right? There's some parallels that they think they're gonna be able to identify if you're on track for epilepsy, but early days on that one. But it was gonna take another 3 years of clinical studies to confirm that on a larger sample. So he got to looking around, how can I develop cash flow now to support my clinical studies so that I can do the larger play and think big data. This will be a unique neurological database globally. Nothing else exists like this for infants. So if all the pediatric community will tell you, man, if we could identify this sooner, there's so many interventions, so many things we could do that improve the quality of that life for that kid that's somewhere on the spectrum, right? And right now, the only option is you have to wait till they're 2 or 4 or 5 and they're presenting or failing to present normal patterns of behavior and communication, right? So the problem with that is that the waiting list to get into a bricks and mortar clinician is anywhere from 8 to 22 months just to get in to see the doctor. Well, until you get to see the doctor and get the official diagnosis, you don't have access to financial resources and special classes and all the ways they can help improve the quality of life for that kid, right? So he said, well, how about if we just did a telehealth platform exclusively for autism and child psychologists? And say, by the way, as a child psychologist, your national average is about $79,000 a year, which is weird to me after you spent 30 years in college and all that kind of stuff. If that's your salary, really? But they have a passion. How about if we pay you $90,000 a year, give you full benefits, give you profit sharing, and by the way, you only have to see 2 patients a day because doing the diagnosis takes about 3 hours worth of work. So you're going to do 2 patients a day, 4 days a week, have a 3-day weekend. The quality of the life for them is outstanding. And they just hired their first person, a person with an incredible resume out of California, 15-year practice, bricks and mortar and telehealth. And she has to pay her rent every month, whether she has a patient or not. She has to market to find the patient. She has to bill the insurance company and try to collect. She'd rather work with the kids, right? So we just solved that problem. Can we find the kids that need this diagnosis? There's an exclusive database. We'll have exclusive access to a database of 250,000 families that have raised their hand. They self-selected, autism has touched our life, we need help. We don't want to wait 2 years to get a diagnosis and get help for my kid, right? We can solve that, all right? So is it better for the kids? An insurance company to pay someone to come to the bricks and mortar is going to pay on the average $4,500 to $5,500 to get the diagnosis. How about if we do that for you for $2,400? Does the insurance company love us? Absolutely. Our cost of goods, if you will, the telehealth platform and the cost of having the clinician do the diagnosis is about $400 per kid. We get to bill the insurance company $2,400. Cost of goods $400, billing $2,400. You can do the math, okay? And there's 1 out of 53 kids every year that is somewhere on the spectrum, and they need help. And we can solve that. We can do both do and well.
They're about to come off the live stream in a couple of minutes. So do you have a final slide that has your
Yes.
contact information that we can put
Yes,
on
we
the
do.
audience?
Do we really? Okay, I had no idea.
I think we do. How did that happen? I went all the way back to the beginning.
Good grief. Okay, we have to begin again. I'm so sorry. Let me explain about grandfather's old ram. No.
Why is it going that way? I'm hitting the same button and it's going. Oh, there we go. No wonder. Well, no.
Ah! Okay, for those
I
in
don't
our
have the
listening
contact
audience.
There's an email in your first one.
Okay.
Maybe. Oh, well, that's
the-
a generic email. Let's
For those
just
of
put
you-
his email.
For those of you who can have good penmanship, most days I can remember my own name. So my email address is Roy, R-O-Y, at Roy Mullin, R-O-Y-M-U-L-L-I-N. No E, no S. Roy at roymullin.com.
So just send an email there and say, we're interested in talking offline about some more. And our goal with all of this, guys, is and thank you guys for Quest for everything y'all do for us. And we've done some stuff in Austin as well. Our goal is to help Quest build more assets, right? Because it's good for them and it's good for y'all. So if we can get you guys involved in some of these deals and then y'all tell other people about it and we roll old money into self-directed because you see these opportunities, our goal is to help them as well. So thank you, Quest, for hosting and for everything you do for us.
We like those win-win-wins. Thank you. Oh. 2 shows nightly, bring the whole family. No, just kidding.
Any more time for Q&A or do we?
all the time.
Okay. Okay.
It's just our fans on the
Got it.
internet who are going to be saying hi.
Okay.
But of course, that's archived, so everybody can
Yeah.
go back and look at it again.
Anybody online that wants to send an email to Roy at roymullin.com.
Quest.
There you go.
Or to Quest, yeah.
IRA specialists at
Yes.
trust.com,
Absolutely.
any of those things. But floor is still yours. There's still
Yeah.
plenty of food. Don't know if you guys know, but pasta salad actually comes too. So
Ooh,
please.
that sounds good.
In your subject line, just put Quest IPO seminar, something that lets us know how we found you, that sort of thing. So
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Any other questions from the room?
I think you. Yeah, absolutely.
So on the exit strategy side, obviously your first is a traditional IPO, then is that potential for acquisition. But something like that, in the case that you give where their revenue streams are really high, is there cases where you come and you decide, because like you said, you want to try as few investors as possible? Is it just okay to just leave it as a revenue generating company?
You will just take turns giving us the fat pitch down the middle. I love it. Y'all give great questions. Thank you. Yes, the last example I gave on the autism deal, that is actually an LLC. Okay, it's not a C corporation. If you're going to go to NASDAQ, you got to be a C corp. All right. This one's an LLC and it's a cash cow with no capital expenditures. There's no reason for it to go public. You're exactly correct. It will remain a cash cow, and because it's an LLC, it's going to spin off its profits every year. So we can show you the data if we think it's a very conservative financial model. But assume for a moment you put $25,000 into that one. At the end of year 1, the expected return is $30,000. Okay, so we're already got our capital back off the table and a little profit. The next year, you still own your membership interest in your LLC. The next year, it's on track for 100, we'll get to the right numbers. Roughly a 4X the next year, and roughly an 8X the next year. Just cash, it's a cash cow. And you're doing good in the world at the same time. And it's a very simple model. But really, I think the secret sauce on that one is the exclusive access to the 250,000 families. If I wanted to go start a telehealth platform tomorrow, I got to go find a patient. I got to go find a kid, right? He doesn't. He starts with 250,000. And by the way, he's going to do geo-targeting inside of California where it's starting the program, take the 250,000, pick out the affluent zip codes and say, I tell you what, I bet you wouldn't even make me bill the insurance company first. I bet you'll pay cash and I'll give you the billing form. You can get reimbursed from the insurance company. But let me go ahead and get paid today to improve the cash flow for this machine right out of the gate.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely. Is it sports trivia or is it IRA related? Okay. General knowledge. Okay.
Sometimes people don't have, you said sometimes the investment is like 25 or 50,000.
Ah, right.
Sometimes they don't have all that in the IRA.
Correct.
Are they allowed to partner, like
Yes.
a couple can partner to buy 25,000?
Absolutely.
Bring their kids in with small amounts.
Absolutely. We can cobble it together. They can use cash in their checking account and a piece of their IRA.
Yeah.
We can, we're creative people. We're going to help you accomplish the goal. So yes.
That question comes up all the
Thank
time.
you.
People want to bring their kids in on these deals, but they don't
Yep.
have, like 6,000 that they put in the Roth. So
Yeah, one thing sometimes people do is they'll just make an LLC of their own, right? So they'll create the LLC. If they're not using IRA money, because you can't really mix that together, but create an LLC amongst whatever that group is. They all have X interest in it because they're each contributing whatever. And then the LLC invests in the deal. And then when the LLC gets paid, then they're going to distribute it amongst each other later. That's a simple way to make it happen instead of everybody individually. Well, as long as all the money going into it was IRA money, right? Yeah, exactly. Right.
So, and somebody asked earlier, kind of minimum investments. 25 is sort of the standard banana sort of thing, 25 and up. We do have, like, for example, the autism one I just described, they'll do 10,000. Okay, so you can do smaller ones. I don't think we've had any where it had to be an extraordinary friends and family kind of situation to dip below that. If you're the company, you don't want 843 investors, right? In your private company. That's just an administrative nightmare. So they're going to want larger chunks so they have a smaller cap table. It looks more elegant when you're going to NASDAQ. Anyway, NASDAQ also does not want to see 873 investors in that deal. That just, okay.
Well, what usually ends up happening, the reason they'll let people come in for those smaller amounts, and we help with that too. We talk them into it. Sometimes we're like, look, just let these people do, because they've got 3 other investors that have put $500,000 each or something, and it kind of just all balances out. So it's okay. And it's a way to help people get involved and even just dip their toe in the water, so to speak, is what we're trying to encourage people to do.
And to his point as well, when you're going to go to NASDAQ, you can't have just 3 investors. There's a minimum number of investors to show some breadth there for NASDAQ to be happy.
So it's good for them to take
So we
on
have to
smaller
find that sweet
investors.
spot, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you had another question.
Yeah, is it a single entity funding, or do you guys have a fund structure as well?
We do not have a fund of our own.
we
No,
do- we do-
on purpose. We don't want to manage a fund. No.
And that's a good point, by the way. You will never write a check to Karmic Payback. Okay, that's not what we do. When we did the deal for Quest in Austin, there was an attorney there, as a 35-year history as an SEC attorney. And he said, he kind of raised the question. I didn't even understand it for a moment because he was asking such a strange question. It was, where would they send the money? I said, well, we're going to bring you the deals we think are investable, where it's checked all of our long list of boxes. And we think this one got past all the hurdles. It's worthy for you to look at. And you're going to invest directly with them. I mean, maybe via Quest, right? But you're making the investment in the company. He had clients and companies that he worked with where they invest in a fund that invests in a fund that invests in a fund that invests in a company. And I said out loud, oh, no. I said,
Yeah.
that was not good for me to say that out loud. But imagine everybody took a bite along the way, and you as the investor, where did your money go? What company is it in? You're 3 layers removed. You don't even know where your money went. And how are you going to get a return by the time that many people are going to take a bite out of it along the way? We cut out all those steps. And for the company wanting to go private, why would you go pre-seed, seeds, round A, round B, maybe OTC, maybe then to NASDAQ? Somebody took a bite out every step along the way. How about if we skip all of those steps? Leave you in control of the company you built, right? And you can even do super voting preferred shares if you want to make sure that you stay in control, because this is your baby. You may not be the right CEO. That's one of the boxes that has to be checked. You may be an engineer that's brilliant in the garage and came up with some amazing new technology. That's a different skill set than somebody that's the CEO of a publicly traded company. It's an unusual person that can be doing both of those things. So that's part of the conversation. Are you okay if we just make you rich because you're going to own a bunch of stock, but we really need Mary to run the company? Is that okay? We want her the public face, or him the public face, because that's not really what you do. You stay in the lab, okay? Yes, sir.
So on the life cycle of the trade, one of the pieces that you brought up was doing the audit. So at that time, prior to looking at investors such as yourselves, you're going to have that audit done. Is that correct?
Yes